And I want to make sure that we understand what you mean when you say global movement.
Well, I think it's more simple than I think people really want to give it credit for. In fact, in rehabilitation, a lot of my peers and colleagues spend a lot of time localizing the body and focusing on the area of pain or swelling or dysfunction. My goal is actually the exact opposite. Obviously, if someone's highly acute or irritable, then you have to respect the tissue healing process. But as soon as I can integrate that body part back into its relationship with its neighbors, the joints above and below, I want to get that going, and I want to see that person moving as a fully functioning organism. There's one body, there's one nervous system, there's one brain. There's been too much of this segmentation or isolation when it comes to human movement and exercise, and I think we're beyond that. I mean, the phrase that I like to say and repeat because it helps me is that if you train muscles or if you focus on muscles, you forget movement. But if you train movement, you'll never forget muscles.
Certainly in different aspects of the sports culture in general, but also specific in the climbing world, we see a lot of people wanting to isolate specific muscles and train those muscles almost exclusively without looking at the rest of the body, without looking at what the sport-specific movements and skills are within climbing.
Without question, I think that's rampant in just about every fitness or athletic endeavor. I think every little microcosm does that, and it's just not reality. Localizing your approach and looking at one specific aspect of the human body and how it works is really myopic, and it's just simply not true. I think that moving towards a global, holistic perspective on movement is really where the leaders in my field are going, and where I hope to see coaches in every athletic endeavor go.
If we're trying to move away from a situation in various sports, including climbing, from where you're isolating specific muscles and just doing conditioning training for them, what should training look like? I mean, are we talking sport-specific training? Can we talk about the difference between primary and supplemental training?
Well, I think first off, it's important to kind of delve into that concept of sport-specific training. It's, I think, really a misnomer. It's misleading in the sense that there's nothing that you're going to do on the ground. There's nothing that you're going to do in a weight room or a gym setting that's going to replicate being on the wall and climbing. And I think that needs to be said. And although most folks will listen to me say that and say, well, duh, obviously, but really let that kind of sink in for a minute, because the fact of the matter is that nothing that you do is going to be truly 100% sport specific except for the sport itself. In activities where the surface that you're on is not the same surface that you're going to be on, the focus should be on injury reduction. I prefer the term reduction, I guess, over prevention, in that you're looking for, what are the common injuries in your sport and your activity, the common areas of soreness or pain or discomfort, and how can you best avoid that or prepare your body for it? Because there's really two types of injury. There's the traumatic type, where you walk out and you get hit by a vehicle, or if you fall off the wall, there's no way of preparing for that. But the second type, that really what you do have much more control over, is the idea that when areas start to become more sore and more painful, or if they're a common area of a problematic area for a particular sport, that overuse or repetitive use syndromes that come with that, how can you best prepare in your training on the ground or in a different setting? How can you best prepare for that and avoid it at all costs? So basically looking for balance. Balance in your life, balance in the way that you train, balance in from one side of the body to the other. If you've got a lot more hip flexion, on one side than you do the other, then I would want to look at that other side that's deficient and try to figure out a little bit about, well, what's really kind of limited or tight, and how do we best grab or develop symmetry. Not that symmetry is necessarily obtainable, but it's a good goal to have.
I just want to pick out a couple things from what you just said. As you were talking about sports specific and then talking about things done in a different context, like weightlifting, you were dividing between primary and supplemental training.
Yes, yeah. So, whatever athletic endeavor that you perform, and in this case, climbing, your primary endeavor, your primary activity is just that, it's climbing. And so to be sports specific, you need to climb. To be, true to your sport and to develop the movement patterns and motor programs necessary to move along that motor learning continuum of cognitive, associative, and autonomous, that I would want someone to be absolutely as good as they possibly can be technically, and to have the inter and intramuscular coordination to climb on the wall and be good at that. That's the primary activity. So if I had a client who said, I only have time to climb on the wall, or to come to the weight room and work out, and I want to be a better climber, what should I do? Well, hands down, it's going to be to go climb.
So it sounds like you're talking about a skill-based understanding of what an activity is rather than a strength-based understanding.
Absolutely. And even though I personally am more of a strength athlete and I'm really enamored by feats of physical strength, the fact of the matter is that your brain, your nervous system, your body thinks in tasks, not in isolated joints or isolated muscles. I mean, folks want to talk about going to the gym and working back and bis and chest and tries, but, well, the fact of the matter is that your brain doesn't think that way at all. And so it thinks in tasks. If you decide that you want to, jump up and get that next hold, or follow a particular path on the wall or outside, then that's what your body is going to do. It's going to do its best to carry out your will. And that's simply it. And I think a lot of times when it comes to these areas of thoughts and science, that people want to make it more complex and more complicated than it really is. I think that's just kind of the foundation of it. It's just simply that your body thinks in movement. And then when it comes to training or in rehab, what I do professionally as a practitioner, the tenet that the maxim that I really obey and respect is first move well and then move often. That's a phrase that I got from a mentor of mine and someone that I greatly respect, a physical therapist named Gray Cook, who's actually here in Virginia, that really popularized that phrase in my profession, and I think that needs to get out and permeate other cultures. But what I'm trying to, I guess, promote is that not only do I want to see what someone is good at, in their primary skill or in their primary, chosen path of exercise or movement, but I also want to bring some balance into those secondary or tertiary activities. And how can we, improve someone's durability and keep them as far from injury as possible. For climbers, from my perspective, is I want to look at how can I get them away from that real kyphotic, kind of hunchbacked posture. It's just one example. It's the upper cross syndrome, popularized by Dr. Vladimir Janda, where, if you're a climber, you have all this development, of those pulling muscles, and the muscles, and you're always kind of on that wall and in a concave type posture. And then usually when those folks get off the wall, you look at them and they look like walking apostrophes. That's the kind of thing that I would want to try to balance out, try to fight that, because that posture can lead to a lot of issues, particularly shoulder issues, shoulder impingement, and actually if that posture begins to be more structural than functional, then you'll actually lose range of motion of the shoulder because of the way that the scapula starts to anteriorly tilt, and the roof, the space in between the head of the humerus and the acromion, or the roof of the shoulder, begins to impinge upon itself, and so you're actually decreasing your wingspan, which is obviously something that you don't want to do in the sport of climbing.
Now, it's my understanding that you were talking about things becoming structural. Once a problem becomes structural, they can be almost impossible to come back from, because you can change the shape of your bones, for instance. Yeah,
so the phrase that comes to mind when you bring that up is from one of my professors and mentors, Dr. Stanley Paris, The thing that he always said was structure governs function, but in time, function will modify, if not dictate, structure.
Gotcha, right.
And so that's the relationship. I mean, really, the structure of someone's anatomy, that's unique to every person, and sometimes it's different from one side to the other, of their body, will dictate how they function and how they move. But in time, if their chosen activity, recreation, or sport, demands that they have a particular position or repetitive motion, that function will modify, if not dictate and change, the structure.
Right.
Which really brings up what I think is the most amazing attribute of the physical specimen is our body's ability to adapt. The adaptability of the human species is truly what makes us, I think, very impressive. And just think, just simply in cultures or in climates, how the human body, the human species has been able to survive in different climates, in different areas, in different altitudes, for a very long time, and has been very, very impressive at doing that. And look at, for those of you climbers who climbing is your second or third or fourth love, physical sport. I mean, think about how your body has changed as you progress in your climbing career, or if you're new at this and kind of where you're coming from. That's truly adaptability is what makes I think life as a human being so much fun.